When they explore their options, the compassionate mediation program and what they're learning from you is how to be their best self, create a compassionate relationship with empathy, explore their options, understand their finances and their rights, and then create the relationship that they truly desire and deserve, no matter what that relationship looks like. And they can create a new relationship together with using these skills we've already talked about. They can come up with a post-nuptial agreement that's different from a prenuptial agreement in that it's written after the marriage, but sometimes they're worried about how the finances might play out, and they can actually go to an attorney and write up a document that, should they separate in the future, what they'd use, a post-nuptial agreement. They could separate without any need for any legal behavior or involvement. They just can choose to pick who's going to move out of the home. They can nest in the home where they come and go. A legal separation involves an attorney. What it does is it allows them to separate and separate their finances, but for the sake of insurance, they can still be married. They can still stay on each other's homeowners insurance, life insurance, car insurance. And most people don't want to get a legal separation because it's like a divorce. You just can't get married while you're legally separated. Or they can have what we're calling a self-led divorce, which again, I hope becomes a catchphrase for a whole new way to get divorced, where everybody involved is coming from their highest self, working for the benefit of all concerned. And what compassionate mediation training does is reminding you to be in your best self and how to do the initial interview, how to offer the miracle of empathy. And we're going to get into the legal and financial information and coach you on how to help people make self-led decisions. So as a review, your first session was on communication, where you do self in parts and the miracle of empathy. We're now going to do into the overview of property settlement, maintenance, child support, and parenting. And then you talk about the pieces of the puzzle and how they put it all together and what they're going to decide. So when you're helping people talk about money, it's always a charged conversation. I mean, you could have weeks of counseling just about how it feels to be talking about money. One party's going to be angry, another party's going to feel vulnerable, one party's going to feel powerless, the other party's going to feel overly responsible. And before you get into the nitty-gritty, just talk about the feelings, because there's the content that you have to talk about, but more important is the process. How are they relating to each other? How much self is in the room? And when they're in self, and I tell them in their first session that what we're going to do when I switch into the legal mode or the financial mode is I'm still going to relate to that self in parts board, because if one of them or both of them is triggered and they're sitting there feeling anxious or angry or hopeless, I need to help them with that before I go on into this subject, because they can't hear me. They're listening to their own hopelessness or their own resentment or their own fear. And I tell them, and I can either help you with those parts with your partner in the room, or I'll separate you and help you get back to self so that you can listen and from a place of safety. Because what we want to do is keep them safe. And just talking about all of these issues, finances, home, children, brings up so many feelings. And what you're doing is giving them a forum to both become educated as to their rights and responsibilities, but also, and even more importantly, to become emotionally calm and confident and even healed, so they can do the healing before they get divorced and not have to do it after. And then once they're healed, it's often miraculous what kind of new relationship they can form. So if they're ready, I go to the board and I talk about property division. And property division is based on, I ask them each their income, I put on my easel their assets and their debts. And the income is each of their earnings, salaries, bonuses, other income. Property settlement is different in different states. Some states have community property, like California, where you take all the property that's marital and you divide it down the middle. Illinois, where I live, has equitable distribution. Of course, what's equitable to one party isn't necessarily equitable to the other. So they look at relevant criteria. How much did each person earn? How do you divide the assets, allocate debts? What's marital and non-marital? What makes up an asset? What makes up a debt? How do you split the assets and the debts? And you can split them 50-50, you can split them 60-40. It might be based on how much do you each earn, what's going to happen moving forward. And some of the relevant criteria when dividing assets are how much will each person earn, the health. It's not regard to marital misconduct, so even if you had an affair, if it's in an equitable distribution state, the affair won't matter. They'll still divide it according to the criteria, your earning ability, and who has the children. And again, you don't have to know all this. You just have to know how to help them talk about it. Because as soon as they start talking about the house, all of their feelings come up. Their fear, their sadness, their anger, their hopelessness. So you're not going to help them decide. You're going to help them discuss both the process and the content, because you're going to have the tools to do that. So there's a lot of different ways to talk about the house. You talk about maintenance, who's going to pay what and to whom. You talk about child support and parenting guidelines. You talk about different types of custody, life insurance, what you do about that. So all of those are issues to cover, and they're covered in this program.